Do you still have triggers? Oh, a personal question. Do you still have triggers that give you a hard time? What do you do when you catch yourself triggered? Okay. All right. Thank you for that question. Yes, of course, I feel triggered. It's really how you respond to the triggers. The way I approach things is really the trigger is your access point. It's your opportunity to become aware of something that you carry judgment about. So the first part of this is you have to recognize the trigger. If you get lost in a big reaction, then it's not really helpful. Then you're reacting and you kind of have to ride it out and just react and let it go where it needs to go. But even then afterwards you can come back and practice on small triggers. So instead of like when you sense yourself really being pulled into a big reaction, then just kind of step back from that and look at something that triggers you less. So start with these smaller weights. Just think of it as going to the gym. This awareness muscle is a muscle, and your reactionary muscle is probably a much bigger muscle at this point, because we've all been this judging, right? This opinions, this constant headspace thing. That it's full of reactive energy, and it's a big muscle. So how do we combat that a little? So when I feel myself triggered, and I'm able to recognize that, okay, I'm feeling triggered. So that alone, if you can again work your way up with smaller triggers, but that alone is already, you're halfway there. You've interrupted your reactivity. You're not getting pulled into this big drama state, right? So practice with small triggers. Train that noticing that you're being triggered muscle, and it gets stronger, and then you can catch yourself sooner, right? And the sooner you catch yourself, the less you start living at the mercy of your environment, where whatever happens, you're reacting to this, and then you're reacting to that. And you just start to catch yourself. And then what you could do then is, okay, I've noticed, I feel triggered, right? Big part. The noticing it is all you need to worry about. You don't need to judge yourself for feeling triggered. Then you're just judging again. You're being pulled into your head. You also shouldn't necessarily celebrate. Yay! You can, but it's not really helpful. The real value in this is to recognize that there's some judgment behind you feeling triggered. If you didn't carry judgment about it, you wouldn't feel triggered. You probably wouldn't even notice it, right? Life presents us with these things that we react to it's an opportunity to become more aware. That's how life is designed. It's all about that. All these triggers are opportunities for greater self-awareness. And that's how life will push you forward and forward and forward and become a fuller, more complete person. It's a brilliant design. We don't like it necessarily because it means having to look within and go out of our comfort zones. But it is a brilliant design system, and it pushes you towards a state of really, truly being who you are designed to be. Because there is that fully realized person within you, that inner voice, that intuition, that knows everything already before it happens, and certainly as it happens, right? So that wisdom is there. So we just have to become aware of these judgments that we carry that are in the way, that are creating mental noise, that are keeping us cut off from that intuition. So notice that you're feeling triggered. Look at, well, what is my judgment, right? That's the next step. Often it's very difficult to determine that. You may make up excuses for the other person. You may rationalize behavior. You may just get lost in past and future again. And it's actually quite difficult to admit to yourself that, no, I have judgment about this. And just be really clear. It's being clear on your feeling. It's not cutting it off and then rationalizing again. You're really becoming clear of how you feel about something. And just be really blatant and honest. You know, I think this person has a horrible sense in fashion. All right? I just admit that to myself. I think that this person is an irresponsible dog owner because they're letting their pet pee on my lawn. Whatever your judgment is, right? Just be very clear, right? So once you're honest about your feeling, then you bring it back to yourself, because all judgments ultimately are self-judgments, right? And that's where the beauty in this lies, is that, well, no, I'm saying I'm the fashion expert when I judge the person to have a poor taste in fashion. That's what I'm saying, right? That's my self-judgment. And self-judgments are not necessarily good or bad. They're a reflection of your reaction, right? Or I'm a more responsible, dog owner compared to my neighbor. And what this does, it breaks you away from your reactivity, and it starts a much larger conversation with yourself and with your intuition, and new things emerge, new thoughts emerge, because you're creating space away from your judgment. The judging part that you reacted to is a tiny little sliver, and it's keeping you focused on just that. You see nothing else in life, and you're engaged with it and enraged by it, or attached to it. And it has your full attention. And while you're judging, you see nothing else. The vastness of everything, the infinite creativity and abundance that exists all around us, you're blind to it. You're judging, how somebody's dressed or how somebody's walking their dog. And that absorbs your attention. And you're completely cut off from your inner wisdom and the beauty and this greatness of life. You feel yourself as small as your judgments are. Tiny, tiny, tiny. No wonder we get fearful of life. We're constantly judging. We're constantly making ourselves really, really, really small. There's this big, giant, amazing world, and we're so attached to these little judging aspects of it that we lose sight of everything. And we're constantly judging. This judging habit. We're constantly in our heads judging things. So our experience of life gets shrunk down to something really, really tiny, and then that makes room for fear and anxiety, and of course you feel like it's you against the world, or the world is out to get you, and that you have to fight your way through and make things happen. Of course, you made yourself feel really, really, really tiny. So then that's what life feels like. Okay, so then once you become aware of yourself, so you find yourself in your judgments, because they're always about you. It's always a self-reflection. We're never reacting. It's not the things that happen that upset us. It's our thoughts and our judgments about the things that happen that upset us. Right? I mentioned the example, I think last time, of a soccer match, and one team scores a goal, same ball, same net, half the stadium is really happy, excited, and the other half is really upset. Right? It's because you judge the situation. One side judges it to be different than the other. Okay? So once you've created this space because you've become aware of your judging, again, there's no right or wrong here. It's just it's generating awareness within you about how your behavior patterns, how you think and react to things. So you're intercepting your reaction to things by noticing the trigger, becoming honest about what your judgment is, about your actual real feeling. That can take some work. And then self-reflecting on that and going, well, it's really something about me. And something about you is always coming from a place of lack. We never judge anything because we feel complete about it. We wouldn't even feel triggered by it if that was the case, right? If we have no sense of lack within that we're reacting from. So suddenly you become aware of this sense of lack within, right? And the awareness of it is already what starts the healing process. You then see continued times, triggers as more opportunity to become more aware, and so the process of healing has begun, and it's really just living mindfully and becoming more and more aware of all the judgments that you carry inside of you. And then that leads to greater awareness. It leads to not believing what the outside voices are saying. The outside world is bombarding you with, you should be that, you should believe in this. You start to live from within, from your own truth, and that's being you, who you are intended to be. And losing the masks and taking down the kind of the false self-image. So then there's a third step to this, really. Now that you have clarity of who you are and you're connected to your inner truth, the world basically presents clear action to you. So it's not where it ends. So self-awareness is obviously the key, but from there you need to take action. Clear action is what I call this. Because you're seeing things clearly. Before you were taking action from your headspace. From judgment, from I think this is right or wrong, I trust this, I distrust this, all these thoughts, these judgments. And when you take action from there, they're really only based on this fickle mind, this wandering mind that one moment it tells you one thing, next moment it tells you another. And nothing comes together. You can live years, decades, half your life can go by till you start to get a sense for like, you know what, it's not really working this way. I've had these big plans and they haven't really worked out. Life is always throwing in a monkey wrench, right? You blame life when you live from your head. And then you start to sense, well, there must be another way. And so naturally, by just trial and error, you realize that just living from your headspace, trying to steer life, just doesn't really lead to anything to fruition, and it doesn't make you feel good along the way either. You're constantly in a state of anxiety and fear. Even when you have things, when you've achieved things through this mental drive, you're still in the state of fear that you may lose things. The more wealth you've accumulated, the more fear you have, and you need to protect it because you might lose it again. You're not building up your life's momentum from your inner truth, but you've built it up from this mental space that is so subject to other voices coming in, facts and figures about science and all that not to be diminished, but your own truth is above everything, right? So taking clear action from this place of your inner voice that comes through much more clearly now that you're connected to, because you've minimized the noise of your judgment, your judging mind, is key. And even there, you can still, fear can seep in, the mind can pull you back in, and even though you've gotten to the point of like, I see what I need to do, I see what I'm called to do, what the situation demands, because you're responding to the actual circumstances, not some made-up, projected reality. Fear can seep back in and keep you from moving forward there too. So you always have to stay connected to yourself. You can never let go. And in the beginning, it might, there will be some trial and error to this. So you become more aware, but you still repeat old patterns. And that's totally okay. You're not going to switch out of this judging habit pattern from one day to the next, because you've been judging all your life. So I hope that was helpful in how I approach things. Recognize the trigger. It's a big first step. You can practice that. Look for small triggers and just kind of become aware of, okay, I'm feeling triggered. Feel that feeling. Very important. All right? Then go, well, what's my judgment? Now, what am I carrying judgment about that leads me to be feeling triggered? I wouldn't feel triggered otherwise. And then self-reflect on that judgment. Bring it back to yourself. What am I really saying about myself? Okay? So you're getting clarity and self-awareness and becoming in tune with that inner voice and your inner wisdom and your body beingness. And then from there you can take clear action.